So this is my first time in Northern Ireland, first time in Belfast. I'm doing the journey that my uncle would have made some 75 years ago. Keen to learn more about him and his life, and sadly, his death. So I'm now on my way to the Ulster Rifles Regimental Museum. They have the war record of the regiment there, and I'm hoping that they'll be able to give me some more answers.
The first record we have of him, he came from the General Service Corps, which meant he joined up when the war broke out. So then he came into the 1st Battalion of the Royal Ulster Rifles. Now at that time the 1st Battalion was airborne, so their name is the 1st Airborne Battalion Royal Ulster Rifles. He went in on D-Day with C Company at about 9:30 in the evening of the 6th of June. So their landing zone was just north of Ranville. So he was part of what is known as 6th Airborne Division, and he was part of 6th Air Landing Brigade in Horse Gliders. So when they landed, then there, if you look at the battlefield here, you can see these are the major landings you all hear about: Sword Beach, Gold, Omaha, going right across. The two flanks of the whole invasion were supported by airborne troops. Now, the problem we do have with his death is he's buried far away from where the battalion was at the time. The battalion was away down here, virtually parallel with Con when he died. Now, he died in a hospital and was temporarily buried, then reburied again. And he died of wounds. So we can only assume, until you get the service record, that he was actually wounded and moved back to the hospital where he died of wounds and was buried. All the lads that are recorded on that day all died of wounds in that area and were buried in a temporary graveyard. So very, very little we can tell you about what he was doing, other than they were assaulting down towards this flank of Con. So it's possible he's been wounded between the 6th of June and his death. It's hard to say.
A month later, yeah.
Now, we will supply you with the paperwork to apply for his service record in Glasgow.
Yeah.
On that, we'll have more detail. Right. And what they would have did in them days, they would have moved them back to a concentration post. Once they got them in the hospital and stabilised, they shipped them straight back to the UK.
Right.
So a lot of lads died on the way back. If they weren't killed right away or died right away, if they got to a hospital, he must have been too far gone for to do it.
Do we know anything about the operation he was engaged in on D-Day?
Yes, on D-Day. Well, their objective was to land in just north of Ranville. So earlier in the morning, the likes of Pegasus Bridge was taken very early by the assault lads. The main division didn't come in that evening, so the main division landed right across north of Ranville, which is here.
Yeah.
So if you imagine, this is Pegasus Bridge, so it was taken very early to stop reinforcements coming up here. So there was only a small detachment of the Ox and Bucks here. Paratroopers landed, and they also took out the Merville Battery.
Yeah. This was the night before D-Day.
This was the night. This was the morning of D-Day.
Yes,
So
the
12:30 they were on their way.
Yeah.
So your Pathfinders went in.
Yeah.
Then you had your assault troops and your paratroopers dropped to take out the Merville Battery and to capture the glider-borne lads to take out Pegasus Bridge. and to protect that until the Landons come in the next morning. I can only surmise, but I would assume that he died in the hospital, was buried in the temporary cemetery. Then when the cemetery was done, he was then exhumed with anybody else that died, with these lads here, and then put into a proper grave.
Yeah, he's a source of great curiosity, but also great pride, because this was a very righteous war, and he played a very small part in that.
Well, if you look at him, there he is with his red beret, his airborne flash, Pegasus. So you can see how proud he is before that he was an airborne lad.
The family tradition is that he got a train. He was a Dubliner, he was from Dublin. He got a train when the war broke out. My granddad, his father, didn't want him to join. Really was against it. And anyway, he got a train to Belfast to join the RAF. He wanted to join the RAF.
Right.
On the train, he met a friend.
Right.
And his friend said, "You don't want to join the RAF, you want to join the Ulster Rifles."
Right.
And so they both went together
to
the enlisting office. His friend was rejected.
Oh.
And he got in.
Oh. Well, it is quite possible he was wounded 3 or 4 days before he passed away.
Right. And the service record will...
It should have something on that.
Right.
It should have something about that. It may not, I can't promise it, but it'll give us a bit more details of his joining and training and everything, where he went to and actually where he was, and it'll give us a bit more than that.
Brilliant.
And we can see what happened.
Right, well, thank you, Gavin.
My pleasure.
So it's really a case of more questions than answers after that brilliant meeting at the Ulster Rifles Museum. Gavin and the rest of the guys were really helpful and great to talk to about the regiment's history and also their participation in D-Day. Still quite frustrating in that I don't know how my uncle died still. I don't know what he was doing or who he was engaging with to kill him. So for that kind of information we need to look at his service record.